What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome to spooky season, my favorite time of the year. And in honor of spooky season, we are going to embark on a journey that every single gun guy out there has thought of at least 100 times in his mind. That's right, folks. In honor of Halloween, we're going to be building a zombie rifle. Now let's face it, we've all done it. We've watched the movies, we've seen the shows, we've read the comics, we've all thought about, okay, what if a zombie apocalypse really kicked off? How would I do? And even more important, what would I bring? Now, for the basis of this particular build, and also a series of videos I'm going to be doing in honor of spooky season, we're going to focus on my personal favorite genre, well, not really genre, but my personal favorite iteration of the zombie franchise. That, of course, being The Walking Dead. And more specifically, how to survive a zombie apocalypse, as opposed to Walking Dead's how not to survive a zombie apocalypse. Unfortunately, one of the biggest tropes of shows like The Walking Dead, and even some movies that I've seen in the past, is that sometimes all you really have handy is what you have handy. Now, this is completely understandable, because if you're someone who is not prepared for this kind of situation, if you're just the average person, let's say somebody who actually lives in a zombie movie, who has never ever actually seen a zombie movie, you don't really know what you're going up against, usually in those movies you see a lot of people walking around with deer rifles. Now, these things are awesome for engaging targets out to a distance. For hunting and foraging, these are one of the best options you can have. One little problem, though. For capacity, they're not really that great. These things hold 3, maybe 5 rounds, depending on the model that you have. Some of them also have detachable box magazines. As you can see, this one does not. This is my dad's old 30-06. And also, they have a lot of recoil. I mean a lot of recoil in some cases. This little baby will rock your world. This thing was created back in probably the mid-60s. I know my dad bought it off his bus driver when he was 15. Yeah, try that in 2023. So these are a good option for foraging and maybe some light sniping, although in a zombie situation, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of that. But even worse than the trope of using a deer rifle is running around with one of these. Pump-action 12-gauge shotgun. Good old-fashioned, do-it-all hunting gun that can take just about anything from a squirrel to a bison and do it very well. Again, there's a problem with capacity. If you're going up against a zombie horde, you want something that has maximum effectiveness, maximum penetration, with a maximum amount of capacity when it comes to facing down all these zombies. Now, a shotgun, legally, these things are only allowed to hold 3 rounds for hunting purposes, and I believe up to 5 or 6 for a tactical purpose, depends on what state you're in. Now, some states, they only allow you to have 2 or 3 shells in your gun at most. And that means a lot of these guns come out of the factory with capacity limiters, with spacers in here where you can only put a couple of rounds in, at which point you may as well be carrying around a double barrel like, what's his name out of Zombieland? What was it, Cleveland or something like that? Shotguns are a good option to have around, again, for hunting and foraging. And another thing that gets on my nerves. Every single zombie movie, you see this at least once. Somebody loads up a load of buckshot or birdshot, pops a zombie in the head, and the head just explodes. Buckshot does not do that. In fact, they've done a lot of tests on ballistic gel dummies, found out that buckshot actually does not do very well for headshots. Now, if you pop some slugs in this bad boy, now you're really talking. Now you can get accuracy out to, I believe, 200 yards in skilled hands. Problem is, just like the deer rifle, slugs are going to rock your world. When you touch that baby off, it is going to go boom! Meaning you have a lot of recoil rocking you back. That follow-up shot for maybe the zombie that's 3 feet behind the one you just shot, not good. Because in the time it takes you to recover from the shot, rack another one in, that zombie's already on you. So unless you got a little bit of distance on these guys, would not recommend a shotgun. Now, another trope, even though they're one of my favorite types of guns, these guys run around with a lever action. Now, these things are awesome. Prior to the invention of the semi-automatic rifle, these things were the original assault rifle. They can fire around just as fast as you can rack that lever. These were a game changer in the Old West. Unfortunately, they've been outclassed for quite a while by modern firearms. Also, usually if you want any kind of capacity out of these guys, you want to get it in a pistol caliber. Say a 357 Magnum, a 44 Magnum, what else is a good one? 444, well, 44 Marlin's a rifle caliber, but you get what I'm talking about. For a 357 Magnum or a 44 Magnum, you can put 44 specials or 38 specials in here. Gives you a little more variety, a little more effectiveness, but really, unless you get them, what can I put this? You're not going to get a lot of distance out of these. For a 357 Magnum, let's say, that's the most popular caliber for these, you're going to get about 150 yards of decent accuracy. Now, you can tack these babies out. In fact, that's become kind of a tactical fad right now, is taking these old-fashioned lever guns, especially Marlins and Henrys right now, You can put a quad rail on here, M-lock rail, put a suppressor or a muzzle brake or something like that on here, add a red dot or a scope. This thing can do almost everything that an AR-15 can do, but not quite as well. Because since you are limited by either your capacity or by your caliber, let's say you get something in a bigger caliber, say 45-70 or 30-30. Now you're looking at about 4, maybe 5 rounds, plus 1 in the chamber. With a 357 Magnum, you can get 12 or 13 rounds into a gun this size. This is a saddle carbine from Rossi. Now these are a pretty decent option, but let's face it guys, the AR-15 is king. Yes, I know, I can already hear quite a few of you guys out there screeching. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of in the comment section. Why am I saying that the AR-15 is the king of the apocalypse rifles? I mean, there's all kinds of other things out there. You got M14s, Mini 14s, SKSs, AKs, all these other platforms that have proven themselves many, many times over and will be just as effective in a zombie situation. Guys, the reason I say the AR-15 is king of the zombie rifles is for the simple reason that the AR-15 weapons platform is easily the most popular weapons platform in the United States at this time. It's literally America's rifle. There are something like 150 to 200 million of these things in circulation. That means that there are parts, attachments, magazines, there's ammo. Oh man, so much ammo. That is probably the single biggest factor making the AR-15 the king of the zombie rifles. Because not only can you go to literally any corner store, any sporting goods shop, and probably any basement in many parts of America, such as where I live, and find just not only whole guns, but parts, pieces, kits, bolts, rails, barrels, anything you can think of to replace or upgrade every piece of this rifle at a moment's notice. Everybody and their brother out here has stockpiles of 5.56 or 223 ammunition. And especially if you have one of these, it's chambered in something like 224 Wild or 223 Wild, will chamber other calibers. And also, not only that, you can easily convert these. All you really have to do is swap out the upper receiver on this bad boy and turn this from a 5.56 into a 300 Blackout. 300 Blackout is probably the second most popular caliber in this platform besides 223 5.56. And if you have a suppressor on that bad boy, 300 Blackout is probably the only gun out there besides a 45 ACP that is Hollywood mouse fart quiet. If you can get one of those things, you can get enough ammo, get a barrel, get a suppressor, you have it made in the zombie apocalypse. But guys, that's just my take on why the AR-15 is the undisputed king, in my mind, of the zombie rifles. Now, of course, one of the first things that longtime viewers will notice is that this is nothing special when it comes to a rifle. In fact, this is my personal favorite build. It's kind of my general go-to, do-everything rifle, even though such thing does not exist. Now, the reason I'm going with my personal favorite build is because, well, it's my personal favorite build. Because let's face it, folks, if you're ready for zombies, you're ready for just about anything when it comes to tactical survival situations. Now, of course, right off the bat, for all the internet RSOs out there, yes, gun is clear, we are good to go. So, one of the first things you want to look for in a good rifle, be it for tactical situations, for personal defense, for a car gun, for zombies, of course, you want to get a good quality manufacturer right off the bat. In this case, this is a CMMG manufactured right here in Missouri, shameless plug, and also with a couple of little accoutrements that I put on just to fit my personal tastes. As you can see, I've got a vertical foregrip up here because my wrists are just worn out from way too much factory work. I have a tactical light up front. I like putting it right here because whenever I've presented this gun into my shoulder, no matter where I sweep this weapon, that light is above the line of the barrel, so I get the full bulb of the light. And it's not really casting much of a shadow, and when it does, it's kind of down the bottom out of the way. It doesn't really affect my field of vision very much. It's also very readily accessible from where I normally put my hand. But most importantly, let's say I am not looking through my scope, I am just kind of canting it. Maybe I've got a 45-degree red dot over here, maybe I'm just sighting down the barrel, whatever the case may be. When I have this light on, wherever this light shines is also in direct line with my barrel and with my sight. So if that orb of light is on a target, all I have to do is point and squeeze, and that bullet is going to go exactly where I want it to go. I've actually trained on that quite a bit. And you will notice the optic I've chosen is a Vortex 1:8 variable power scope. Now, this is especially valid for a zombie apocalypse situation. Everybody loves their red dots. Everybody loves these electronic sights that, of course, require batteries. In Walking Dead, what's one of the first things that runs out? Batteries. When nobody's making them anymore, and when pretty much everything runs on electricity right now, batteries are not going to last long in a grid-down situation. You want something that has an etched reticle, that gives you maximum effectiveness, maximum variability in the fighting space, something that is going to last longer than, let's just face it, going to outlast your supply of batteries. It's going to give you maximum effectiveness for the maximum amount of time. And for me, that's a scope. Now, of course, if you insist on having a red dot on your firearm, say your zombie rifle, which isn't a bad idea. I mean, as long as you have a good supply of batteries, as I said, this thing will last as long as you need it to. This thing will put down zombies, it'll put down bad guys, it'll put down food for the table, pretty much anything you wanted to do within the limitations of its caliber. However, if you're going to go the red dot route, two things I would suggest. One, you either go to HoloSun or a similar company that has a red dot that actually has a solar panel on top, because I've actually had a lot of good experience with those things. This is not currently one that has a solar panel. The one that has a solar panel I actually broke not too long ago because I put it through a lot of wear and tear. I mean, that thing took a licking and kept on ticking. I definitely recommend HoloSuns. I feel like I'm doing another shameless plug, but oh well. But, of course, get one with a solar panel because those things will actually outlast their battery. They run on the solar panel as a backup, but you can actually run them solely off of the solar panel. I've done that for quite a while in some cases. Now, another thing I would suggest, just to give yourself maximum effectiveness when it comes to fighting either zombies or hostile humans, add a magnifier. Now, if you ask anybody who's been downrange in any of the places we've been fighting for the last 20-odd years, they'll tell you that a magnifier is absolutely a godsend in many, many situations. Because you can have it right here hanging off your rifle. I like to flip to the side. I don't like those really high Hydra mounts that they have now for like night vision and stuff like that. I don't use night vision, so I don't need it. But they actually do make mounts that have a red dot way up here, so you are running night vision during a zombie apocalypse. Assuming you can, again, get your hands on a ludicrous amount of batteries, but I digress. Let's say you are running a tall mount. Then you can actually have one of those flip to center mounts, but for now we have a flip to the side mount. Now what a magnifier does, just like in a real world situation, it gives you that potential that if you have your red dot up, you can engage a target from, let's say, 50 to 100 yards, but now you have a target, say it's a hostile human taking shots at you from farther out, or you just want to take that precision shot. Maybe you're covering one of your buddies who's running away from the zombies, and you want to get a precision shot on that Z that's right behind him, but you don't want to hit your buddy. So now all you have to do is flip that magnifier off to the side, get it behind the sight, and now you have a level of magnification which can vary depending on which model you get. This is actually a 3x magnification. Now you can get them in 5, 6, I believe all the way up to 8x right now. They're working on some more powerful models, but really if you're going to go up that high, you may as well get a scope. And they also make miniature models. This is kind of an older one I've had for quite a few years. You can tell it's got some wear and tear on it. They make ones that are about half this size, a little more compact, but they only go up to 2 or 3x. Now what this does is that at the flick of a wrist, you now have 3 times magnification. You can engage a target out to, let's say, 200 or 300 yards with a whole lot of accuracy. Or you can engage a target at 100 yards or less with supreme amounts of accuracy. Because remember, guys, these don't make you shoot better, they make you see better. And if you can see better, you can shoot better. Whether that's against zombies, whether that's against an active shooter, no matter what the situation might be, these are always really handy. And when you don't need them, you can just flick them off to the side. Now you can look through your red dot, or in the case of this one, this has a quick detach mount. Let's say you're going to go through an urban area and you don't think you're going to need this for a while. Well, you can just pop it off there, stow in your pack, drop in your dip pocket. Now your rifle's ready to rock and roll. It's a little bit lighter, and you just got that dot for those quick, close-range engagements. Now, another note on setting up your AR-15 for a zombie apocalypse. Some longtime viewers may actually recognize this gun as formerly being of a pistol variation. Now, after the ATF decided to get too big for their britches and thought to themselves, you know what, I can write laws better than Congress, so I'm going to ban short barrel rifles. Well, short barrel rifles are already banned. I'm going to ban AR pistols and pistol braces just because I feel like it. Well, that's when I had to reinvent this little bad boy and stick a 16-inch barrel on here. Now, in a zombie grid-down situation where none of those idiotic unconstitutional rules apply, I would absolutely recommend slapping a shorter barrel onto a weapon, especially if you're in a close-range urban environment where you don't think you're going to need all this accuracy that you get from a 16, 18, or even 20-inch barrel. Now, is it always a good idea to have the maximum amount of potential out of your weapon? Absolutely. 16-inch barrel offers you a lot of variation, a lot of effectiveness out to extended ranges. I've actually taken shots with a 16-inch barrel, actually the build I've got back here with a scope on it. I've taken shots out to 500-600 yards and wrung steel with boring reliability. Now, set up like this, where you've just got your dot, maybe you slap that magnifier back on here, you've got really decent accuracy out to that distance, but really this kind of setup shines at about 300 yards and in. Now, for a zombie apocalypse, you're probably not going to be taking a lot of 300-yard shots, because honestly, if a zombie is 300 yards away from me, I'm not even going to do anything. I'm just going to turn the other way, walk into the woods, and hope he didn't see me. Now, on the other hand, let's say we've survived the first few seasons of our Walking Dead apocalypse, and now we're fighting the Saviors and other unsavory characters. Now, here's where it really gets interesting, because another thing I would very much recommend adding to your weapon, if it's a grid down zombie apocalypse situation, is a suppressor. Now, I'm on the fence of buying a suppressor at this point in time, because even though I really, really want one, I have this huge adversity to signing down the dotted line, having the government know exactly what I would have, how much I paid for it, where it is at any given time, so I'm just not going to do that. However, again, in a zombie situation where the grid is down, rules no longer apply, oh yeah, suppressors are going on here. Whether it's this build, the one with the scope, one of the other builds I've got laying around, suppressors, if they can be found or foraged, will be going out of these weapons. Because, of course, it's a zombie apocalypse. Every time you pull a trigger, every zombie in 100 square miles knows exactly where you are, especially in an area where I am. I've got a lot of hills and a lot of trees, some open areas, and I try to stay away from those. But if you touch off a trigger out here, you can hear that gunshot for miles. It bounces off these hills like nobody's business. So if this were a land overrun with the undead, I would be picking my shots very, very carefully, whether I was fighting or hunting. Suppressors really, really help out with that. Now, something to remember about suppressors before I move on to the next subject. Suppressors do not silence a gunshot, they suppress it, hence the name. Now, if you're shooting subsonics, say a 300 blackout, that's a whole different story. But a 300 blackout with subsonic ammunition is only good out to about 100 yards, and that's if you're a good shot. Now, again, if you're engaging zombies, go for it. 100 yards and in, that thing is literally mouse fart quiet. I have shot steel with my buddy's 300 blackout that was suppressed. We were ringing steel at 60 yards, and I swear to you, the sound of the bullet hitting the steel was louder than the gun going off. You could almost hear the action cycling. It was so quiet. Now, when it comes to a 5.56, different story. This is supersonic ammunition. It is going faster than the speed of sound, so that even though the suppressor will be suppressing the actual gunshot, the crack of that bullet breaking the sound barrier can still be heard. However, it does severely dampen it down from what it would have been from a full power 5.56. In my experience, it sounds kind of like a hot 22, maybe like a 22 Magnum, as opposed to that big crack of a 5.56. So, just a little food for thought. With all that being said, though, there are 3 things that you should always do to any kind of fighting rifle, whether this be for home defense, car defense, civil defense, a zombie apocalypse, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, what have you. 3 things you always want to do to your rifle. You want to make that thing slow. S-L-O, Sling Light Optic. Now, I've talked about my setup a minute ago regarding my light and my optic and why I chose those things. However, one of the most important things you can put on your rifle is a good sling. And I've often heard a sling compared to a holster for a rifle. And that really makes a lot of sense, even though it sounds a little ludicrous. Because if you think about it, the holster that holds your handgun on your hip, what does it do? It holds that weapon securely in a consistent place where you can get to it at a moment's notice and you don't even have to think about it. The sling does the exact same thing for your rifle. As you can see, my hands are completely off of this rifle. It is hanging here freestyle, right where I want it. It's slung right across my body, easily accessible. I don't even have to touch it. In fact, a lot of times I will rest my hands like so, down here on the pistol grip, maybe down here on the rail. But I don't even have to touch this gun. It's staying right here where I want it, exactly where it should be. Because if I'm walking around in zombie apocalypse land like, oh man, it's a hot one today, ain't it? Man, I don't know where my next meal is going to come from. Uh-oh, zombie. All I've got to do is grab hold of this weapon, get it into my shoulder, bring that optic up to my eye line, and I am ready to rock and roll. Now, the same can be said for the 10,001 situations that you might be in where you don't actually need your rifle, but your sling comes in very handy. Let's say I want to get this rifle out of my way. I'm going to do some housework. I'm going to chop some wood. I'm going to skin that deer I just shot. Whatever the case may be. But I don't need this rifle in my way, and I need my hands free to do whatever it is I'm going to do. All I really have to do is swim one arm out of this sling, put the other arm through, sling it around my back, and now that thing is completely out of my way. It's hanging behind my back, still within easy reach. It's going to be a little awkward when I have to grab it and get it back into my shoulder, but I can do it. But for now, it's out of my way. I can take out my knife, go down on this deer, do whatever it is I need to do without that rifle being in my way. Now, on the other hand, if I want that rifle to come back to the front, what do? Well, I can either bring it back around here. This is a little bit awkward, but I've seen guys do it, where it's hanging behind your shoulder. It's kind of out of the way, but not really. You can put your hand on the pistol grip and maybe shoot it from the hip. But what you really want to do is swim out of this holster. Swim out of this sling. get it back up on your shoulder, and now you're good to go. Or you can do this the back or the other way. I've seen guys do it both ways. Over the right shoulder, over the left shoulder, really doesn't matter. And yes, I still have my knife in my hand. I'm going to put it down now. So, good sling, absolutely a must. Because not only does this rifle hang right here across the body exactly where I need it, I can do all my weapon manipulations, get into those tight spaces, except right here. See what just happened? I'm trying to do a high ready as if I'm going through a hallway or some other compressed area. Or maybe I'm in and around my buddies. Maybe we're searching for some saviors or something. This is kind of awkward with the 2-point sling the way I like to wear it, which is, again, over my right shoulder under my left arm. However, one thing I can do that is very useful in a zombie situation, swim that one arm out. Now what do I got? I got a tactical necklace. I basically have all the benefits of a single-point sling right now, even though I'm still rocking a much more secure 2-point sling. Because now I can do high ready, low ready, I can bring the gun in, I can punch the gun out, I can move around corners, I can get it around my buddies. Even more importantly, I can squeeze into those tight spaces that maybe the zombie behind me won't be able to, or I can squeeze through that tight hallway or through that crack in the wall, whatever the case may be. Then if I turn around, now I got a fatal funnel and I can just whack and stack these zombies as they come through that hole. Slings are an absolute must on any kind of fighting rifle. Whether, again, it's for zombie apocalypse, it's for defending your hometown, or it's for fighting the zombies and Russians that are falling from the sky and rising from the grave, and name your apocalyptic scenario. Remember, guys, when it comes to a fighting rifle, make it slow. S-L-O, sling, light, optic. Well, there you have it, folks. My take on what the perfect zombie rifle should look like and exactly what you should have on the gun. Now, I've covered the bare bones basics when it comes to sling, light, optic, ammunition, as I said, the bare bones basics of what you should have on your fighting rifle and or zombie rifle. Now, when it comes to anything above and beyond that, y'all can go crazy because there are 1,000,001 things that you can attach to an AR-15. Yet another reason why this thing is the king of the apocalypse rifles. I mean, I've got a scope on here. Say you want a red dot and a magnifier. Go for it. Maybe you want a more powerful scope like a hunting scope or a sniper scope. Go for it. Do your thing. Rails. I'm not even going to try to touch on all the variety of rails that are out there. You got M-LOK, Keymod, Quad Rail, Pick Rail. You got anything that your heart can think of, anything to your heart's desire, you can attach to this rifle. When it comes to foregrips, I prefer vertical foregrips. They have angled foregrips. They have long foregrips, short foregrips, foregrips that screw on and off. There are all kinds of things you can do. Also, when it comes to your lights, a lot of guys like to run IR lasers or visible lasers on their guns. I'm not a big fan, but I'm not going to tell you how to set up your rifle. Also, maybe you've got night vision or somebody in your crew has night vision. If you've got night vision in a zombie apocalypse world, you own the night. I mean, how many times have we seen Walking Dead where they're fighting at night and they are at an absolute disadvantage? That being said, if you're going to rock all the fancy doodads on your apocalypse or zombie rifle, remember the batteries. If you're going to have electronics on your zombie rifle, stockpile those suckers now and never stop because you are going to need them. They are going to go very fast and they don't last very long. You actually have to take a lot of precautions to make those things last any length of time, which again is why I prefer scopes or something with an etched reticle that does not require batteries. Same thing goes for your lights. Same thing goes for any other electronics you have, weapon-oriented or not. Flashlights, radios, anything you can think of. I mean, my head is just inundated right now. I can't even spit one out because there's so many thoughts running through my head. Start stockpiling your batteries, your ammunition, and anything else you might have, including medical. One thing you don't see a lot in zombie movies, especially stuff like Walking Dead, is medical treatment. When somebody gets bitten by a zombie, well, sorry, buddy, but that's it. We'll just take you out back and put you out of your misery. Somebody gets shot by a savior, well, there's no hospitals around, so what are you going to do? You can do what you can. Hopefully they pull through. But that's only if you don't have the proper stuff. You don't have the proper gear. You don't have the proper training. If you can go out and get that training now, before the Russians are falling from the sky and before the zombies are rising from the grave, that is crucial to the survival of yourself, your fellows, your family, and anyone you may come into contact with along the way. Same thing goes for gear. Tactical gear, hunting gear, survival gear, food, sharpening utensils, backpacks, water purification, stuff to keep food for a long period of time. Skills even. Learning how to can. Learning how to process and preserve meat. Learning how to make fire. Learning how to stockpile firewood the proper way. There are a million and million one things that you can do to prepare yourself for a potential zombie apocalypse or any other miscellaneous apocalyptic event. Now, do I think that's actually going to happen? Yeah, not really, but a guy can dream, right? The zombies may be a little bit far-fetched. The Russians falling from the sky, well, they tried that in Ukraine. It didn't work out very well for them. Now, a lot of guys are talking about maybe Chinese falling from the sky or North Koreans, but that's neither here nor there. That's, back at the gun shop, wishful thinking talk. But going back to the subject matter here, when you set up a zombie rifle, just remember all the important details that I laid out in this video. You want a good sling, a good light, a good optic, lots of ammunition, and above all, training. That is something I personally offer, and there are dozens and dozens of training facilities and instructors all over this great country that will give you all the training that you can stand. Because, guys, what's one thing we always see in every single zombie movie? Nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah, there's a couple guys. Rick Grimes kind of knows what he's doing. I don't know what the deal is with always pointing his .357 Magnum at the ground or trying to shoot a zombie from 5 feet in the air. I really don't get that. Maybe it's a British thing. I don't know. Shane, on the other hand, awesome shooter. I mean, the guy just slays up until the point he actually gets slain. Daryl Dixon, master. I mean, the guy survives the zombie apocalypse with a buck knife and a crossbow. Give that man an AR-15 and he is an absolute beast. Then when they run into people like the Governor, people like Negan and the Saviors, those guys have training. The Governor is deadly with an AUG in his hands. I mean, how far away did he snipe that one guy? I forget his name, the prisoner who was chattering away with Carol, then, that is exceptional skill, especially for a gun like the AUG that doesn't have the best trigger and isn't really known for its long-range accuracy. Now, if you have a setup like this, you can engage any kind of threat, any kind of target, be it human, zombie, animal, what have you, from a very extended distance. You're talking 500-600 yards. Distances to where most people have never trained or never even attempted and probably never will outside of the military. If you have a light, if you have some kind of infrared or night vision or thermal, something that can let you see in the dark. The scariest part of a zombie apocalypse is night fighting. If your weapon and your person and your gear can fight in the dark, you own it. Ammunition. They always run out of ammo. You never have enough whenever the zombie horde is coming after you. If you have a good stockpile of ammunition and a good supply of it on your person ready to go, you're in a much better position than somebody running around with a deer rifle, 3 rounds, and maybe a box full of shells stuck in his pocket that's going to take him forever to reload. You're in a much better position than the guy that grabbed a Glock off of, some poor SOB in St. Louis, running around with 1 mag and no source of ammunition. If you have the training to use these weapons, to use these items effectively in a given situation, let's say you are walking down the street, a bunch of Z's are walking towards you, you're not just spraying and praying, you are taking those quick, clean, precise shots, 1 shot, 1 kill. Every time you pull that trigger, a Z goes down or a Savior goes down, bad guy down, what have you. Every time you squeeze that trigger, an enemy goes down. You can disengage. You can use tactics. You can use your weapon. You can use your gear. You know what you are doing. You are leaps and bounds ahead of the pack when it comes to fellow survivors and other people that may be trying to, do unsavory things to you and the people you love. When it comes to picking your gear, when it comes to picking your rifle, be it for zombies or otherwise, always seek out training. Always seek out the best possible options. And I hope it helps you out a little bit along the way. This is Ozark Powler signing off. Stay safe, stay alive, and stay frosty, my friends.